So read the problem below, then explore different ways to understand sorting shapes into groups based on parallel and perpendicular sides. Evan plays a board game. The board is divided into 3 sections: parallel sides, perpendicular sides, and parallel and perpendicular sides. These are Evan's cards. In which sections of the board do the cards belong? So we have a hexagon, a rhombus, parallelogram, and trapezoid. So they're going to give us 2 strategies before we start working on our own cards. So the first one says picture it. So we can always draw a picture. So it says to draw a pair of parallel lines right here and draw a pair of perpendicular lines. So that's going to help us remember which is which so that we can identify the shapes that have those in it. So we're going to start off with the rhombus right here. It's up in here, but they drew their own. And they drew lines along the opposite sides to check if they were parallel. So when they go across like this, are those lines parallel or not? Yes, they are. They're never going to touch. What about these lines? Are they parallel or not? Those are also parallel. So when you're checking to see if it's parallel, you're going to be going over lines that are across from each other to see if they are parallel. The next part says draw lines along the side of the shape to form angles. So that means that when you're trying to check if it's perpendicular, you need to draw lines along the edges that connect. So they're not opposite, they're the ones that connect. And this angle that we just drew, I guess I should have used blue, is obtuse. So it's not perpendicular because it doesn't form a right angle. Look at the sides of the square. In which categories does it belong? So we're solving a similar problem to the one that we just looked at. So we have different questions. So to start off, we're going to check parallel. Do we look at the opposite sides or the connecting sides for parallel? Yep, we look at opposite sides. So if I draw lines, along the opposite sides, are those lines parallel? Yes, they are. They're never going to touch. So we know that it goes in the parallel side. We now need to check if it goes in the perpendicular side. Now remember, the perpendicular lines make a right angle. Right angle. So we want to look at the lines that are connected. They meet. Not very straight, sorry. Now, is this right here a right angle, acute, or obtuse? Yep, it's right, so that makes it perpendicular. So it goes in the perpendicular and parallel category. So I'm not going to write parallel and perpendicular. I'm going to write, in which category does it belong? You're writing this too. Period. So we have, it says look at the sides of the square, which category does it belong? The square goes in both parallel and perpendicular categories. Instead of goes, I could have said belongs. The square belongs in both parallel and perpendicular categories, since that's what the question says. All right, number 3. Does the quadrilateral belong to any of the 3 categories? If not, name a category that can be used to describe the shape. So the first one we're checking is parallel lines. So we first start with our opposite lines. Are these lines parallel or are they going to meet at some point? They're going to meet, so they're not parallel. So let's check the opposite sides. This one and this one. Do those meet anywhere? Yes, they do. So they're not parallel. What about perpendicular? Perpendicular, again, makes a right angle, just like we drew over here. So we have to look at the sides that are connected. So we have lines here. Those are acute. We have lines here. Those are obtuse. We have lines here, obtuse, and we have lines that meet here, and those are acute. So they're not perpendicular or parallel. So it says, if not, name a category that can be used to describe the shape. So if I'm thinking about the sides, perpendicular, no. Parallel, no. It's not asking about angles in this on this little lesson. We're talking about just the sides. So what kind of category would we need to add? Yeah, we would need to add a category that says that this quadrilateral doesn't fit in any of them. So it may be no parallel or perpendicular. If we have a 4th category that says that it is neither, that would fit this shape would fit in that. So does the quadrilateral belong in any of the categories? So we want to answer that question first. Okay, so the quadrilateral belongs in none of the three categories. A category that describes the shape would be not parallel or perpendicular. And I got to put my end quotes here. I had starting quotes, so I need end quotes. Number 4, explain how to sort shapes based on parallel and perpendicular sides. So, lines on opposite angles. Remember, you can pause this if you need more time to write. Number 5, describe the group these shapes belong in based on the kinds of sides they have. So we are looking at the sides only. So first we're going to start off with the parallel sides. Remember, we are going across. Are those parallel? Yes. Are these parallel? Yes. Next shape. Are these parallel? Yes. Are these opposite sides parallel? Yes. Are these sides parallel? Yes. And are these opposite sides parallel? Yes. So now we're going to look, we know that it fits in they all three fit in the parallel sides. Now we're going to look at perpendicular. So this would mean that they have right angles. So we need to draw lines on the adjacent sides. Do they form a right angle? Yes. Adjacent sides, do they form a right angle? Yes. Adjacent sides, do they make a right angle? Yes. So it fits in the both parallel perpendicular lines. All right, and then the last one, circle the shape that belongs in the group no parallel sides. So this first one, we're doing parallel sides, so we need to look at the opposite. Sorry, my cat's pushing on my hand while I try to click. Okay, so the shape that belongs in no parallel sides. Parallel sides means that we have to draw lines along the opposites. Does this have parallel lines? Yes. What about this shape? Does it have parallel lines? No, it doesn't. Now, for this triangle, I can draw a line along one of them, but which one is opposite? That's right, neither of them are. They're both adjacent because they both are going to touch, which means that that one is the one that has no parallel sides. So I want you to go to Google Classroom and see which page we're doing next, and go ahead and do that workbook page. Your family has the answer key on Class Dojo, so you can check your work afterwards. Make sure that you figure out what you did wrong. Don't just check your work and call it a day. All right, I'll see you guys on our next lesson.